It's funny because since I was homeschooled, back to school, we didn't even really summer was like a lower time, but my parents were like, you're bad at math, so you still need to be doing math during the summer, which I was like, that's horrible. So back to school is really like, for me, the back to school season, it's a vicarious joy. As a kid, I would watch all the other kids go back to school, and I'd be like, that seems exciting.
Scott, that's crazy. I can't even imagine
You're about
being.
to say that's very sad.
I did feel a little sad for you because
No.
I do think back to school is like a cool time of the year, but also like a lot of kids did not think that. I'm a school freak. That's
Yeah.
why education was perfect for me.
It's time for back to school, and it's time for Sound Politics. You're listening to Sound Politics. I'm Scott Greenstone. And next week, for a lot of kids in Washington State, it is back to school season. So this week, I'm here with Sami West, who edits and reports for our website, but also spent years reporting on education in Washington State. Sami, thanks for being on Sound Politics again.
Thanks for having me.
So as you can hear from both of our voices, fall semester excitement is in the air. But there are big questions about education in Washington State, big financial and budget questions that have been building, I don't know, for years, decades even. And they're culminating in potential strikes, like among the teachers union for public K through 12 schools in Seattle. Do we know, before we dive in, if that is happening? Are the teachers in Seattle going on strike next week?
Yeah, so a strike is starting to look likely, but that could also change in the next few days. Our education reporter, Noelle Gasca, says that the union representing teachers and educators, they've all voted on Wednesday night to authorize a strike, but that also means that a strike is not necessarily happening. They still have time to come to an agreement over a
Okay.
new contract. School is supposed to start in Seattle on September 2nd, and they have until then to negotiate. And they're looking for things like better pay increases, smaller class sizes, and that's coming at a tough time when budgets at schools are in the red and at the city and state level.
And we are going to talk a little bit more about that on the show today. Education budgets, as I'm sure you're aware, are sometimes a tough and complicated thing to talk about. But Sami, we're having you on this week because we want to talk about it in a unique way that also allows us to memorialize the great late Dolly Parton and her enduring impact here in Washington State in the education sector.
Yeah, I mean, what a woman. We all know and love Dolly Parton and her music,
Yeah.
but she was also well known for her philanthropy. She even said at one point she wanted to be remembered as the book lady. And a few years ago, she brought her signature literacy program for kids to Washington State in a move that was celebrated at the time. But then it sort of devolved into a funding fight with the state government.
Yes, and that is what we're going to talk about today, because that funding fight over Dolly Parton's reading program can actually, I think, tell us a larger story about the state of education in Washington during our age of budget deficits. So we're going to talk about that today on Sound Politics. Before we take a break, though, Sami, what are you doing on September 16th? Are you free?
I think I might be.
Okay, well, check your calendar because that evening we are doing a live taping of Sound Politics, and I would love if you came. And listener, I would really love if you came and brought all your friends because, Sami, tell me if this happens to you. So you get your ballot, right? You look at it and you suddenly realize you need to fill it out and turn it in. But there's a lot of measures and candidates on there that you've not been following, like judges, school board positions, levies, constitutional amendments, things like that. This event, the design is we're going to get you up to speed and we will answer your questions. So you can get tickets and you can ask questions ahead of time at the link in our bio on the podcast today. And I will see you, listener, there. And I'll see you there too, right, Sami? Because you're free.
I'll try.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for trying. Let's take a break and then talk about Dolly. You're listening to Sound Politics from KUOW. This week, We're talking about the time Dolly Parton brought her literacy program to Washington State, and then the state gutted funding for the program, and what that tells us about the state of our education funding. I'm joined today by Sami West, online editor and reporter at KUOW. Thanks for being on the show, Sami.
Thank you for having me, even to talk about such sad news with Dolly.
Yes. So Dolly Parton passed this week, and though her music and her movies will certainly live on, I'm a huge fan of Steel Magnolias. I love 9 to 5, and there's so many great songs.
Such good stuff.
But Dolly wanted to be remembered for her work as, quote, the book lady. So in lieu of flowers, the Parton family has asked that people donate to Dolly's Imagination Library. Sami, tell us what that is and how it connects to Washington State.
Yeah, so Dolly started Imagination Library in 1995 in her home state of Tennessee in honor of her dad, who was illiterate. Like many other folks at that time, he had to be out working the farm instead of going to school. And that was something he was really embarrassed about, even into adulthood, Dolly said. So that's where this program comes in. It sends free books every month to kids under 5, millions of books a month, according to the nonprofit that runs the program. It operates in 5 countries, and a few years ago, it came to Washington. That was in 2022. Dolly came to Washington State the following year to celebrate the program officially being available in all 39 of Washington's counties.
Wow.
She held this event at the Pantages Theater in Tacoma that August, and I got to go there to cover it and also to soak in all of that Dolly magic, and truly, there is nothing like it.
Yeah. What was that like to be there? Did you get to meet Dolly herself?
No, I did not get to meet her, but I swear it feels like I did. I feel like anyone in that audience would say the same. She has this magnetic way about her. I was blown away not just because of like that stage presence or how dang good she sounded like well into her 70s, but also just because she seemed so like real, so warm, kind, genuine, full of life, and it felt like I met her.
Wow.
But yeah, she like instantly commanded the room. She walked in with those high heels, a pretty like cool outfit, though I will say it wasn't like as sparkly, and like maybe I would say it was a little more dialed back than we're used
Sure.
to. I mean, it was like a children or like family friendly event after all, but she played some songs. The highlight for me was definitely Coat of Many Colors, which I'm embarrassed to admit I had never heard before.
Turn the guitar up a little. Back through the years, I go wandering once again. Back to the seasons of my youth.
She also sat down on stage with State Superintendent Chris Rakedahl for a sweeping interview. She talked about her upbringing in Eastern Tennessee, her family, her career, and in typical Dolly fashion, she shared some sage advice.
Whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, we're still human beings. We're not all supposed to be alike. Remember what they say about variety being the spice of life? But that doesn't mean we can't be good neighbors. We can't be good people.
Wow. Dolitics is what they call it.
Perfect for this podcast.
I know. I love that. I am very jealous. Unfortunately, that appearance is not the end of the story, right? So what happened after Dolly left?
Yeah, so initially half of the funding for this free book program was coming from the state, at least at first, and over 100,000 kids were signed up for the program throughout the state. The state was kicking in over $2 million the first couple of years. But then state budget crisis hits, and that funding went away last year. The program had to stop sending books to kids who had signed up for the program in some areas that it had previously been operating.
Oof, yeah. God, the Washington State, the state that defunded Dolly. But unfortunately, this is kind of a common story with Washington's budget, right? So like niche programs with social good elements that get chopped when the state's not bringing in enough tax revenue to fund, you know, the other services, what some would say the core services and the programs that state leaders want to prioritize. So now, where does it stand? Does Dolly's Imagination Library still exist in Washington State? Is it still sending books to all 39 counties?
Yes, so it does still exist. The program has kind of limped along after those budget cuts in 2025, but it also couldn't operate in all 39 counties across the state for a little while.
Okay.
3 counties had limited service or no service. Private funding is now sustaining the program in that state. The Imagination Library announced earlier this summer, though, before Dolly died, that it had secured 2 large grants to keep it running.
Oh, okay.
So things are looking pretty good for them. They actually are about to make an announcement about expanding back into those 3 counties. But, the future continues to be up in the air.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, with Dolly's passing, her family did tell people don't send flowers. If you want to honor her legacy, donate to the Imagination Library. That might be a windfall for the organization, yeah?
Yeah, but, the Department of Public Schools told me this week that the program really needs state funding in the future to keep going.
Oh,
The schools agency has been able to cobble together about $360,000 this year, but that's a fraction of what the state was providing before. And the agency is still trying to get more funding. That's going to be one of their requests next year. And it's aiming to get $2.5 million for each year, but it's unclear if that'll happen because obviously the state is still facing a big budget shortfall.
yeah.
I also talked with Imagination Library Washington folks this week too, and they hope that people will remember Dolly by donating to help them save this program. It was never fully funded by Dolly. She founded it and obviously contributed a lot, but
Sure.
in this moment with all of these gaps in funding from the state and also funding issues at the local level, there are local organizations that partner with the statewide chapter to keep things running.
Oh, okay.
They all need support still.
So those are they deliver the books to the young people's
Right.
families.
Right.
So let's talk about the bigger story here. Is there like a lesson to learn here about how the state sort of values or prioritizes education? I mean, obviously, the biggest element of our state budget, I think we've talked about this on the show before. It's worth saying again. The biggest element of our state budget is public education. So why would the state cut a literacy program during a budget crisis?
I mean, the pot of money for education in the state is so huge.
Yeah.
Over 40% of the state's operating budget goes towards schools and learning programs. That's billions of dollars. And a lot of that money is unrestricted. So state legislators can look for places to save or move money around in that area and plug other budget holes when money is tight. So even though the pot of money that's supposed to fund schools looks huge, it also used to be bigger in terms of the overall state budget. About 15 years ago, education spending by the state was about half of the state's total budget. Now it's closer to 43%. So that's a pretty big decline.
Interesting. I wonder if that's actually a decline or if it's expansion in other areas because,
Good point.
14 or 15 years ago, our state, the economy was growing so much that there was a lot of new spending, particularly in the housing sector. I bet I'd be interested to dig a little bit more into that. Question for another show. For this one, at the top of the show, we talked about how Seattle public school teachers might go on strike. Does this fight that we're talking about now over education funding, does this have anything to do with the strike debate that's happening now?
Oh, certainly. I mean, it's been an issue for years. The population of school-aged kids is shrinking in Seattle, across the state. Inflation is making it more expensive just to literally keep the lights on in schools.
Wow.
And a lot of districts are facing budget shortfalls. So even though so much of the state's budget goes toward education, it just never seems to go far enough. And in districts like Seattle, teachers say their pay isn't keeping up with the rising cost of living, inflation also, and then their class sizes are too big. And the union directly points to state funding as, the root of this issue.
I think on the one hand, when you look at the budget and you see how big a slice of the pie education is supposed to get, you think, wow, the state really cares a lot about education. I mean, it sort of has to. It's written into the state constitution that one of the, I think they use the word paramount duties of the state is to fund public education. But then when you think about how that money, you just said that money is unrestricted, or a lot of it is, and so it can get siphoned away for other uses as needed. It does make you wonder about how we're living up to that commitment. And then, I guess, obviously, now I'm playing devil's advocate with myself. Maybe something like the Dolly Parton Library doesn't necessarily need state funding, right? We're seeing evidence this week that there's enough private interest in funding it. And maybe this year, right? You talked about those grants. There's enough maybe private interest in funding it that, that we can keep it going. We can't rely on a beloved celebrity dying to fix everything.
Right. Yeah.
I guess that is a down note to end on. So, Sami, why don't you sing the Kenny Rogers part of Islands in the Stream, and I'll sing the Dolly part to send us on our way. Is that good? Okay.
Yes.
1,
yes.
2, 3. Oh, they're signaling me in the studio that we're out of time.
Darn it.
Man, the listeners really missed out on that one.
Baby, when I met you, there was peace unknown. I set out to get
That is it for Sound Politics this week. Sami West, thank you for being our guest.
Thanks for having me.
And our editor is Kat Smith. Our producer is Alec Cowan. And this show is only possible, like the Imagination Library, with listener donations. So go to KUOW.org/politics to make your gift and continue this show and all of our other lovely programming, like the Seattle Eats episode that you heard last week on our feed. And a note about that before I go, I actually have a correction to give. I'm really sorry to candidate Caleb Tewolde, whose age I misstated. So Caleb is 31, not the age that I stated in the previous podcast episode, which I won't repeat because I don't want to repeat a mistake. So I am Scott Greenstone, and I regret the error, and I will see you next week.